Everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sherri, and I want to talk about an interesting kind of a revolving topic that's been coming up for years now, but I think it's resurfacing in our collective right now, and I think it's part of our evolution, just kind of revisiting certain marker points. I'm going to try to. Yeah, I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible and not make it too long of a video because I want to keep these shorter so people don't feel like I'm dragging on points. So I'm going to try to be mindful of how much I elaborate. So I'll just get right to it. A few years ago, a lot of us started talking about the whole notion of 3D to 5D. And I think it started to become like one of those new agey topics. And it really started to turn off a lot of people because they got confused or they were uncertain of the authenticity of it or the intentions behind it and you know who to trust that was talking about it. So there was this whole thing, and I even said that years ago when I started my YouTube channel, where I started. I explained what I believed it was at the time, how to hold space. I used so many metaphors and analogies, trying to help people understand what was happening. And I think that for the most part, a lot of what I said still holds true, but there have been some shifts. And also, through my own learning, like I said, a majority of what I know comes through my sessions, but also my own learning from my own higher guidance system. And I think that there are some important points to talk about, to remind people. One, to be cautious. I think part of the biggest part of the challenge of shifting in densities is using our discernment. So figuring out or knowing who to trust and when to trust these people and not giving our power from, the dark player's agenda to somebody else, the truthers or the spiritual community or this person or that person. Doesn't really matter where they're coming from. Just not giving your power away to someone else, because this game is all about sovereignty. It's how do we graduate? It's how we evolve out of this situation. And I did a live the other night where I really went in specifically into the different types of star seeds, into the different types of roles people are playing in humanity right now, and how we're all being, of service to humanity, and all the kind of the intricacy of that, because it's quite complicated. And I'm learning so much in my sessions, even to recent day, that I'm like, man, it's even more complicated than I realized, which also makes it really difficult to explain it to other people, because you're constantly learning more. It's like just when you feel like you figured something out, more information comes through. So I feel like if I could give more brief videos on the things that I'm learning as I'm learning it, at least as long as I understand it, then it helps people put things in perspective. Because again, a lot of this shift has a lot to do with our perception. That is the golden ticket here. It's how are we perceiving our reality? We can really anchor ourselves into the third dimension with a third density consciousness, as long as we are anchored to that mentality of thinking, the emotions that are attached to it, and all the cords connecting us to this reality, with trauma-based kind of programming and multiple lives of traumas, and programming, etc. So it's not just this life, it's other lives. And as we embark into a higher density, which is the fifth dimension in fifth density consciousness and higher, like again, we're not going, I don't believe anyway. I don't believe we're going anywhere. We're staying exactly where we are. The issue, not the issue, the thing that I'd like to try to eloquently explain, and I don't know that many people are doing a good job of it, including myself at times, because it's hard to put. And the challenge is, sorry, I keep going off in tangents, but the challenge is our vocabulary, our words are really limiting, and that's on purpose. That's by design. So we are purposely taken away from our telepathic abilities and our ability to connect energetically, where we just know what the other person is trying to relay with 100% certainty, without question, without without misinterpretation. But words limit that ability, and the tone and all of these things. And when you take all of that out, it's likely that people aren't going to get confused by what you're saying, because there's no confusion to be had. It's just, it is what it is. If that makes sense, there's no confusion. But when you have words that have ambiguous meanings and multiple meanings, and then depending on the perception of the person receiving the message versus the perception of the person giving the message, if there it can get lost in translation if the resonance is off between the two people. So you can see how this gets very complicated. But the idea is that I think as we grow in consciousness, which is the density part of it, our reality can change, but we don't actually go anywhere. We stay in the same planet, the same space, but the dimensions are shifting. And what that means is that we could, the third, fourth, fifth density, for example, just focusing on those three, they can be in the same physical space. Like I talked about in other previous videos, I can't remember which one, but I think it was the nightmares and shadow beings or protection. I don't remember. But when you're in your home, there can be a lot of dimensions within your space that your home is in, for example, which is why so much traffic can come through with entities, both good and bad, and different variations, because it's just quantum field of energy, but you just happen to have boundaries of matter with the walls in your home. But it's all in the same space. It's just what you are attuned to. What are you able to perceive? So very 3D people that are very connected and anchored into the 3D third, I'm talking about the dimension, and their consciousness is very in resonance with the third dimension based on years of programming, manipulation, trauma, lack of love, fear, and sex magic, and all of the things that hinder us, keep us from our light, and keep us dimmed, so that we stay and remain programmed. So we remain in that third density consciousness, in that third dimension, within the same space of others. But as we disconnect from that, it's like we break out of the matrix, but we're not actually leaving anywhere. We are just perceiving the illusion of the matrix that we are in essence trapped in, but we're not, because once we see through the illusion, we are tapping into a higher knowing, which is our higher self. Sometimes we can receive messages from our guides and through guardian angels and our star family. That's important to get guidance and to receive support, but people sometimes discount our ability to just get information from our higher self. So a lot of times people, when I do sessions with people, they ask me, who are you getting this information from? And I said, well, it's some of it's your higher self having a conversation with my higher self. No guides necessarily are necessary, or needed, because we have access to the same information a lot of the times, if we can bring our consciousness up into a frequency where we can perceive more information, which is what our guides are essentially doing for us when we can't do it. But the real true ticket, and I've talked about this in many interviews in the past, our guides are encouraging us not to focus so much on who's my spirit guide, what's their name, how do I connect with them? Because they're trying to encourage us right now to, one, understand that they're always there regardless, so we don't need to call on them. They are there. But they want us to connect with our higher self, our higher knowing first, and trust that intuition. And then through that process, our frequency will shift, and then we will be able to perceive their messages more clearly. So it's kind of like a beautiful and synchronistic energy that goes back and forth, but they want us to be able to do it ourselves. They don't want us to rely on them, because then we go from the human aspect of relying on the mainstream media for our news to now relying on our guides to tell us what to do. And which is why a lot of times, and it used to make me frustrated for years. I'm like, why can't you just tell me what to do? And they're like, we're not going to tell you what to do. You have to, you have to decide. We'll try to guide you and assist you, but you ultimately have to make the decision yourself. And after I stopped acting like a baby and realized they were right, once I did that, I really connected to the idea that I could get all the answers. And it's not an idea, just the knowing that I could get all this information for myself, and I don't necessarily need to ask them. But then a beautiful thing happened once I trusted myself. And I surrendered, then I felt their energy connecting with me more. And then it was like, what can we create together? What can we learn together? So that sort of thing. So we're not necessarily leaving, being transported someplace else, which is what's happening right now. And this is why I'm doing this video, because a lot of us are kind of seesawing in between third and fifth dimension, because we have ties in the third. So a lot of the star seeds that I find myself working with, the more awake star seeds that have kind of are already shifting or have shifted or had their spiritual awakenings or are continuing to have more, have connected and their lives have changed significantly, and they are really embodying the fifth density consciousness or even higher. Because some of the children I work with, I'm like, they're not even fifth density consciousness, they're way higher, seventh, ninth even. And but then we have family members that are still in a lower density consciousness, and we still have to go to our jobs that are very third dimensional. And we're in the grocery store and we're pulled down into these lower realms of reality that can challenge us. So we feel completely at peace in our own home or in our own community. Things are going great, and we feel like, gosh, everything's going to be okay. I don't feel affected by any of this negativity. And then they get a rush of it when they have to go out in the world to do their job and certain things. So there's this constant pull of this fifth density perception trying to merge and integrate with the third density perception. And that's where the problem lies. So like when people go to friends' houses that they used to go, and there's parties and all of these things, suddenly, one group doesn't have anything to talk to about the other group, or maybe you're the one person in the group that doesn't want to talk about the things that they're talking about anymore. It doesn't resonate with you. You see through the illusion of all the lies, but you also don't want to be that person in the house that's talking about, they're trying to talk about very 3D things, and you're like, yeah, what about the alien, blue beam, what about blue beam technology or something like that? And they're just like, say what? And they're not ready to hear about extraterrestrials and past lives and timeline jumps and all of these things that you feel freely to talk about, with people like myself and others in your community, maybe online only, but it's a real struggle to it's like almost like you're trying to reintegrate yourself in a life that you once had and no longer do. Or maybe you've never felt like you connected. Maybe you faked it for your whole. I feel like I was one that faked it, and I'm not to be honest, I'm not very good at it. Like people always say to me, you are the worst liar. Like, in the sense, like I can't, if I don't like somebody, it's really hard for me to pretend like I like them. I just don't know how. Like you can see it on my face. I can't lie. I'm not saying I don't lie. You know what I mean? Like I just can't hide the way I feel about certain people, or if I'm in a situation that I'm not enjoying myself or I don't want to be in, it's pretty clear and evident. And people are like, are you okay? Like, what's wrong with you? And I'm just like, I don't want to be here. And I'm sure a lot of you are feeling the exact same way that I'm experiencing. So we're teetering in between two realities. It's almost like we're jumping back and forth between two timelines, but really it's just two densities within two dimensions. It gets confusing. The dimensions is the space in which we are within. So like a Target, for example, or any big box store, Costco, that's a third dimensional store or a space that you're in. That's the dimension you're in. There could be fifth density humans in there. There could be third, there could be low density spirits, even lower than that. There could be angels. I mean, it could be a mixed bag that are in there, right? And then when you go to your home, you are in your fifth dimensional oasis that you've created, or you go out into nature surrounded by animals and trees and streams or mountains or wherever you're close to the oceans, and you feel like a complete peace. You feel just amazing because now you've re-entered a fifth dimensional space, even if it doesn't have walls. And there are little oases, like, oh, is that a word? Oases. There are little places that can embody that fifth dimension as well, like wellness centers or salt caves, Himalayan salt rooms, or whatever, something like that. So it's really challenging right now because we're just feeling like we are so done with the third dimension, but we are not really able to disconnect from it yet. And I've had so many sessions with people with the same theme, running theme right now, where they are having dreams and they're tapping in and they just know with certainty that they have another reality that they are connected to. And it's like they're splitting their time in between two different spaces, and even the husband and wife are having two different realities, and they're not even remembering conversations that the other, like that one remembers having and the other one doesn't. It's bizarre. It's like crazy glitches are happening because, again, that matrix of the 3D is essentially breaking down, because as we evolve in our consciousness, we burst through it. We don't see through, we see through the illusion anymore. So we're not hindered by it, if that makes sense. As like, imagine a grid around the third dimension, right? And most people within this grid are third density beings that have been trapped here. And then there's starseeds that, the whole, you guys know the story. And then as more and more people raise in density, they push through and break holes in this matrix, this grid. And at some point, it starts to break down. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's why there's so many bleed throughs. That's why there's so many glitches. That's why so many people are experiencing deja vu. All of these crazy phenomenons. People are starting to see more than they've ever had, more clairvoyance, seeing angels, seeing the dark, seeing everything, the spaceships. I mean, you name it. Because that grid is breaking down, and it's very evident though, because then it opens and gives us access now to go to a higher dimension, again in the same space, but it's what can you perceive. Your perception shifts, and along with your perception, as that shifts and you go into a higher dimensional field, guess what also sheds and you leave behind? Judgment, fear, anxiety, all of these lower dimensional emotions and challenges, because you don't, so it's like you feel like this sense of peace. Like, I don't know, Sherri, I know the world's looking pretty sketch right now, but like I'm feeling really positive about everything, and I'm not really worried, and I'm not losing any sleep. In fact, I'm sleeping like a baby. That is that person that's broken through, can still look down and see all of the garbage going on, but it's not attached to it anymore. I've had more people with 5D pregnancies, where there specifically, let's say a woman is exhibiting the signs of pregnancy, bloating, belly has gotten bigger, breasts are enlarged, they're feeling nauseous, morning sickness. Some of them aren't having their periods at all. Some of them are just spotting. But there's negative pregnancy tests, and nothing is there to prove that there's actually a physical pregnancy taking place. And what I have seen in some circumstances recently with clients is that the explanation for what's going on, because there's lots of different 5D pregnancies. I don't want to get into all of them, but one of them is what's happening right now, where there is another aspect of yourself, right, in the fifth density consciousness or higher, bringing in a fifth density being or higher, likely higher, that cannot, like, will really, it's like seventh or higher. So we have a third density consciousness, fifth density consciousness, and then the seventh or higher soul that wants to come through. And I've been talking about this for years, that a lot of the souls coming through right now are the pioneers, and they're the in-betweeners. So they're coming in to be a part of this transition. So they are coming in willingly to integrate to some degree to the 3D, but to help break it down with their light, to make more of these like holes, to burst through the illusion and break the matrix, the 3D down. And they know that they're willing to come through. But there are other not much more, but that's, the more is relative, but other advanced beings are like, no, I will not come into this reality, into the 3D at all. So I will not come in until we are anchored into the fifth dimension at least. So what's happening is there's two aspects of the same woman. So there's a third density, really it's, so hold on, I got to explain this better. There's the woman has to be in fifth density consciousness, but in a third dimensional reality, anchored by her life circumstances. Maybe in her home, she's fifth dimension with a fifth density consciousness, but she's still tied to 3D because of all the things I mentioned. So there's another aspect of her as she's tapping into her fifth density consciousness in the fifth dimension, where she actually is physically pregnant, and or there is an etherical pregnancy happening, meaning that the third dimensional physical body is connecting to the idea, or not the idea, the energy of the mother in the fifth dimension, fifth density, bringing in the soul of the seventh density consciousness or higher. And the physical body over here is detecting that, because it's all connected. And because the grid is breaking down, more energy is seeping through. So this is happening. Whereas before, there would have been too much of a disconnect where they wouldn't be able to mingle with each other, if this makes sense. So the body is perceiving it's pregnant, but it's not, but it is, because it's an etherical pregnancy. The energetically, the mom and the child and the soul of the being are integrating as one. The third dimensional physical body is picking up on it, but the pregnancy is actually going to take place in the fifth dimension, which is where that person is headed very soon. I believe that there will be some sort of a consciousness split. And I fear, not fear, I'm careful about using certain words, because I think it triggers people and they're overused, and then people question it. So I try not to use the word timeline split, because we've heard that by so many truthers so many times, and I think it freaks people out. So it's not really a split. It's just at some point, we're going to get to a point, I think, that in 2023, where the third dimension will break down enough, and those that are tethered to it, like the NPCs and the lower dimensional ETs and the darker spirits that are anchored, and then unfortunately the souls that are refusing to ascend, and it's their free will, and they are not going to join, will energetically, there will be a split that occurs, because we won't be able to hold the space anymore. Like I keep saying, we're holding the space. Well, soon we're not going to be able to hold the space energetically, because it will need a disconnect to occur. And then the fifth density beings will transcend or ascend into the fifth dimension. And that is where the animals that I talk about that have gone extinct are. That's where a lot of our family members are going to be waiting. That's where we'll be able to see our true form. So if a Lyran feline humanoid has been, if that's how they want to reveal themselves, that's what they're most comfortable looking like. And in that fifth density dimension, they will be able to shift their appearance in that way. Or maybe a Nordic Pleiadian being will prefer to look like that. Or we can change a lot of our appearance, and the manifestation changes. And I think that's what I tap into when in my book, where I talk about the future of where I see us going with the leadership structure, the quantum military, the education system for the children, and all of these things, these communities, and all the things I talk about. I think that's what I'm seeing is that that fifth dimensional reality that's already in existence. It's already there. We're just, I think we're perceiving both options right now, and we are going to connect fully to that aspect of ourselves for those that are ready. And so for the woman in the example that's pregnant, she is, and she will have that baby probably in 2024 sometime, in the gestation period in the fifth dimension I talked about in the book and in some videos. I see being way shorter, and we're going to do more conscious conceptions, where we communicate with the soul beforehand, like I did with Aramis. Conscious conceptions, then we have calling in the soul, then the conception through the conception portal, and then the birth portal when the baby is born within 3 months, maybe 4 months. Maybe it might start out longer, 5-6 months, and then it'll slowly get less in gestation or duration. So that woman, in essence, is pregnant, just not here, but she is there, if that makes sense. So it's almost like that future version of herself is showing her what is coming. but it can't happen or it can't occur in the 3D because that soul, one, doesn't want to come into 3D. It's like, I will, that's where I draw the line. I'll come in and help the earth ascend, but it has to be at a certain point where that I know I'll be fully protected and I'm not taking any risks. And number two, they can't lower their density for whatever reason to match the third density physical bodies, the third dimensional bodies. It's just, it wouldn't be a match. So the mom would have miscarriage after miscarriage or stillbirth because it would be really challenging. And we're seeing that right now anyways, with a lot of the advanced beings that are coming in now. And don't ask me how some are able to do it and some are not. I don't have the answer to that. I just know that it can happen. I've seen it. I've worked with a lot of ninth density consciousness children that have somehow managed to come in, but I don't know how. I think the mother's physical body and her level of consciousness obviously is a significant factor, but there's a lot of other things. Maybe they have a lot of help, or it's just destined. It's just a plan that is coming into fruition. And these other beings are not part of that destiny. They don't want that, so it's not going to occur. I hope that this is making sense. So we are really living in between these two dimensions right now as our consciousness is shifting and evolving into a perception where, like I always talk about, the macro, where we really can see everything from an eagle eyes view. We look down and we're like, whoa, we see so much more of the picture, as opposed to in the third dimension. Look, everything is so micro. And that's why one person has their truth and the other person has their truth, and both think they're right, and they both are. But they're also both not at the same time. It's really, really tricky. And that's by design, because that's how the matrix is the program to be that way, so that we can fight each other, resent each other, hate each other. And all this other 3D interference really interferes with our ability to have compassion for others. That's where the psychopaths come in, and the sociopaths, and the narcissistic tendencies that I talked about in another recent video, and how that thrives in this environment. So the moral of this whole video, again, I probably talked longer than I was expecting, but these are important things. So I really feel like I want to take the time to say it right. I don't want to rush through it. But, our ability to be open to change is huge, because that's how we evolve. We got to get out of our repetitive patterns that aren't serving us, making shifts. A lot of us are blocked for a reason. The old souls that I talked about in my live the other night, if you didn't check it out, watch that. We'll go back and watch that, and this will make more sense. But a lot of the veteran souls that I talk about that have been on are old souls. They've been around the block, but they've been here a lot. And they're really, I call them the veteran souls of the earth, because you can't fool them. They're the black sheep. They're the lions of this reality, and they can't be fooled, can't be bought. They're not driven by ego, money, all of that, because they're like, listen, buddy, you're not going to trick me, and I'm sovereign. And they're real. They stand up. They're also very compassionate and have empathy for others and genuinely care. And then we have the new new earthlings, like the new recruits, I call, that are very evolved beings that are just coming in here for their first time, and they're so happy to be here, but they're really in shock. They're like fish out of water, and they're desperate to go home. I think both groups at some point are desperate to go home, because the veterans are pretty much on their last life here, and then the new recruits, who knows how long they might have just come in for this one life, which I've seen, and then they might be committed to staying longer. It's their free will. But the point being that a lot of the veterans are blocked for a reason, because if they came in with the knowing of everything, it would be too overwhelming, and it would have made this life more challenging. So a lot of you chose to be blocked, to not be spiritually open for a certain part of your life. And it could be half your life. You could be 60 years old, just waking up. And asking me, why do I feel blocked? Or you could be in your 20s or 30s, but I keep telling people that's by design. You chose that because, one, sometimes out of safety, because you want your light to be a little bit dim, so you don't attract attention from the dark players, knowing that you are here to do something of significance. So you kind of lay low, and you're blocked for a reason. And you also didn't want to have all of this gifts, because then you would have been around your whole life people that didn't resonate. You didn't feel you resonated with, or maybe you did already, but that would have just heightened it and made your life much more challenging. So what I'm learning and discovering is a lot more people are blocked because they asked to be, because that was part of their soul contract. But the good news is, if you're finding yourself thinking about it more right now and connecting to the idea of why am I blocked, like the fact that you're even asking it, I've noticed that's a good sign that you are um, that you are your blocks, your self-inflicted blocks are starting to break down because of the fact that you're even mentioning it or thinking about it or asking about it is a sign to you that you are going to start to open up. It's time now. It's time for you to ask the question because it's time for you to shift. So the good news is I think a lot of people are, and I think 2023 is a very important, significant year of change, but there's also a lot of density and transmuting of fears and a lot of collective trauma that people are healing. People don't realize that the one that you as that one individual are healing through your transmuting your traumas from this life. You're not only helping to clear a lot of lives of your own trauma of similar occurrences like sexual abuse or loss or whatever, you're also helping to heal thousands of others that experience the same thing as you many times. It's just amazing what's happening, but it's very confusing because there's a lot to it. It's um, a lot more layered than we realize. And again, like I said in the beginning, just when you figure it out, you think you figure it out, you realize, oh my gosh, there's so much more. So those of you feeling blocked, I believe most of you are for a reason and you did it by choice. But if you're thinking about it and asking the question, likely it is a sign that you are waking up sooner than later. And 2023 to 2024 are likely the years for you. And if you're feeling connected to two realities right now and you're very frustrated and you're like, I am so done with this place, or you're having bleed through memories of your lives in other planets and you're missing your family to the point where you are just sad and you just want to cry and you want to give up. And I'm not saying you're going to take your life, but you just feel like I can't do this anymore. You're having those thoughts where you're just like, I'm over it. I just want to go home. You're feeling desperate. That's just, to me, again, hold on a little bit longer because these are all, I think, really, it sounds crazy that I'm saying this, but they're all positive signs that change is coming, that positive things are coming, and we're just right on the very cusp. It's like we're on the roller coaster and it's like, and we're about to go, like we're on that like part where you kind of go like this, and then you're about to fly down. That fly down is like the climax. Sounds like such a bad word, but it's like the what we've been working towards. It's the celebration, it's the movement of something forward. It's our our ascension to sovereignty. And it's a beautiful thing and it's coming. And I think that these are all seemingly negative signs, but I look at it as, oh my God, these are all such beautiful, positive signs that if you're feeling like you're done and you're frustrated, that means we're so close. So don't give up. And I think the dark ones want you to feel like you want to give up so that you do give up. And then you just get pulled right back in, you get sucked right back in to the third dimensional matrix. And then their hope is probably that as if some get sucked back in, it might fill those holes and reinforce that grid. Now, I know that I don't know, I'm not God, but I don't think that we can possibly patch up that grid, and there's nothing that they can do. And they're trying everything they can with all the fear porn and just continuous nonstop fear mongering and all of these things because they're desperate for us to come. This is such a weird visual that I'm giving you, but it's like they're just trying desperately to like pull people back down into it so that they can like close it back up. And I don't think that's possible. So I understand if people are feeling frustrated and they're just like, I want to go home. I'm done with this place. I don't resonate with anybody. I'm just sad every single day. Just know that one, don't give up. Then all of this would have been for nothing. And all the thousands and probably millions actually of starseeds that came in before us that are still coming in, and the ones that are still coming, we can't give up because we need to recognize it's not you, even though you might feel alone physically. if you close your eyes and look through your third eye, you will start to realize that there are millions of you, of us, all standing seemingly alone all over the world, but we are making an impact. And if one light goes out, it truly affects all of us because we can feel it. We can feel the dark pull and the light pull. We can feel that, and we don't want to lose momentum. So we need everybody to participate. It's really important that we don't lose sight of where we're headed and all the work we've done up until this point, and we don't want it to stop. So try not to lose your hope, stay positive, and recognize that sometimes if you notice that you are in between two realities, then just say a couple of things. I do not consent to 3D interference or anything that's going to pull me down or anchor me into the third dimension. I am, and then you can add other things to it. I fully embrace and I connect to the higher aspects of my consciousness. I align with the fifth dimension and beyond, and I surrender to the unknown, the unknowing, and the potential and the potential of what is to come, that is in the highest interest of all parties involved that are of the light, obviously, because we don't want the outcome to be good for the dark players, but for all the light workers and the light, all the light within us. And just keep reiterating that. Reiterate every single day. I do not consent to any inner 3D interference, any anchoring, any connections, any energy cords, anything that comes in your mind. And you just keep reiterating, I do not consent. I knowingly and purposely disconnect myself from the third dimension. And I see through the illusion now, and I fully embrace the fifth dimension and beyond. And I am universally supported, protected, and loved. And just so you stand firm and like mean it about the I do not consent part. And you then emphasize your connection to your sovereignty, your higher density, and your connection to the fifth dimension. And just visualize yourself every single day in the reality that you want. It may not look exactly like that, but the point is you're saying, yep, that's what I want. I want to be in that higher dimension. So you'll still be in the same space, but it'll be your perception will change and you will see things different. The sky will look different. The clouds will look different. The animals will look different. The colors will change. The way you feel about yourself will change. The way you look at everybody else will change. Everything about your life you'll start to notice will change. Even if it's just a little bit at a time, you'll start to notice it. So try to hang in there. Hopefully this video was helpful, and stay the course. Don't lose hope. Don't let the dark ones win. Use that as a motivation factor. For those of you that are competitive out there, say, I stand up and say, oh no, they're not going to win. If that helps you. Even me, who's the least competitive person I know, can use that as a motivation of like, oh yeah, that's something I do want to win. And it helps me to remain balanced, grounded. But remember, step out of fear, but also step out of anger, and try to step into surrendering, your absolute knowing, and gratitude, and sovereignty, and use that for motivation and excitement, and use your imagination, the imagination that they stole from us our whole life because they put us in the left brain mentality so we can be easily manipulated and controlled. Take that part of you back. Remember when you were a child and you could imagine anything you wanted. That's where we need to get back to. We need to use our imagination to fuel our ability to co-create and manifest. And then we just accept and surrender that it could be that, or even more than that. And that's it. And so it is. So I hope this was helpful today. I hope I talked more slowly. I tried to be more mindful of how fast I speak. Leave some questions or thoughts in the comments. And until next time, I'll see everybody soon. Bye.